Hello everyone and welcome to a deck tech for Graaz, the unstoppable Juggernaut. This card literally just got spoiled last night, which was, I guess, January 5th. So, this is what I made for him. Graaz Unstoppable Juggernaut, 8 mana 7/5 legendary artifact creature, Juggernaut. Juggernauts you control attack each combat if able. Juggernauts you control cannot be blocked by walls, but more importantly, other creatures you control have base power and toughness 5/3 and are Juggernauts in addition to their other types. Guys, this sounds like Juggernaut Tribal, but he is the only Juggernaut in this deck. So the game plan is we don't need him to win, right? But he dramatically speeds up the beatdown. So we want to play as many rocks and small guys as possible early game, and then use Graaz to make them larger. They retain their keywords and abilities, so they are just bigger utility creatures. So for example, if we have like a 1/1 that taps for a colorless, well now we have a 5/3 that taps for a colorless. Or let's say we have like a 1/1 flying lifelink, well now we have like a 5/3 flying lifelink. You guys know how it goes. So ultimately, we just want to ramp out hard and start flooding out the board with big boys. Let's go to Planeswalkers. We got 4 of them. So we have Karn, Living Legacy. He's good because he makes a Power Stone. We can also use him to kind of draw cards. And then if we win the game by minusing 7 him, that's kind of what happens. We can just start tapping our artifacts and pinging people down. We only have artifact creatures, maybe 1 or 2 that aren't. Karn, Scion of Urza. We basically show an opponent 2 cards. They say which one gets to our hand and which one goes to exile. We can get that card back from exile, but more importantly, we could -2 them and just make an 0/0 Karnstruct that just gets big because we're an artifact deck. Ugin the Ineffable. Colorless spells cost 2 less, super good. He's going to plus to just make us a 2/2 guy. When it dies or leaves, we just get that card back in our hand. But more importantly, he's just straight up destroys a permanent. That's 1 or more colors. So we're primarily running him just because like he's one of the best planeswalkers with a static ability that's just colorless spells cost 2 less. And that's our entire deck. So he's a big cost reducer, removal, and kind of card draw / token maker. He's really good. Then we got Big Ugin. We're colorless, so his plus just straight up bolts whatever. His minus does not affect us at all. It's just a board wipe for our opponents. And then we just gain 7, draw 7, and then play 7 cards for free. Pretty cool. But yeah, he's just a big nuke and just like bolting things when we need. Let's go to creatures. Burnish Heart. So again, the idea with this is like, okay, so Burnish Heart took a 2/2 that like we can sack and all that. Maybe it's not the best example, but it can just be like a 5/3 later on that like we'll beat down. So usually like playing Graaz is a big upgrade. So pay 3 mana, sack it, search our deck for 2 basic lands, put them in the battlefield tapped. We have wastes. We have like 5 wastes, but everything else is a non-basic land. So Burnish Heart's just hard ramp for us, which is good because we're a colorless deck. Kenotep Spider. Flying 4/4 when another artifact creature token or vehicle enters the battlefield under our control, draw a card. Guess what? We're an artifact creature deck, so that's pretty much all of them. Chief of the Foundry is just Lord for our artifact creatures. He's going to make our 5/3 Juggernauts into 6/4 Juggernauts, which is big helpful, and he's also a 5/3 Juggernaut himself. Cityscape Leveler is one of the only few instances where playing Graaz makes him worse. But typically that's not the case. Cityscape Leveler is just too good. So 8 mana, 8/8 with trample. Whenever you cast a spell or whenever it attacks, destroy target non-land permanent. And then his controller just makes a, tap Power Stone. So he's just good removal on attack, and like when he enters, like we just get rid of something, we go to combat. Even if Graaz is in play and he makes him a 5/3, like we can just kill their biggest blocker. So pretty cool. Plus we can unearth him for later if he goes away. Crypto Thrall. He just gives our other artifact creatures hexproof, and he's a 5/3. Duplicant is a 6 mana 5/3 that enters the battlefield. You may exile target non-token creature. That's really all that matters in this case. He just comes in and he just exiles a creature, and as long as the card exiled with Duplicant is a creature card, its power and toughness is, basically that. But we're not really going to be worried about that because it's going to be overwritten by Juggernaut anyway. It's going to make him a 5/3. Sometimes it's going to be bigger, sometimes it's not. But again, he just eats a creature. Etched Champion is a great example with Graaz because he is a 5/3 pro all colors. Very cool. So basically he can't be blocked. Foundry Inspector makes our guys cost 1 less. And Hangerback Walker, I really like the idea of. Hangerback Walker is, we can just play it for straight up 0. We can play it for free. He's a free 5/3 with Graaz. And then we can put counters on him to make him a 6/4, a 7/5, and get bigger and bigger, right? And then when he dies, if he has a counter on it, we just get that many flying 5/3s. Really cool, really cool. Joy's Familiar is a flying 5/3 that's a cost reducer. Junk Diver is a flying 5/3 that says when he dies, return another target artifact from our graveyard to our hand. We just get back whatever we need. We have Karn himself, who's actually the placeholder commander because Graaz isn't out yet. Karn Silver Golem, 5 and a 5/3. When he attacks or becomes blocked, it gets -4 until end of turn. So, -4/+4 until end of turn. So it's kind of nice, like if he does get blocked as a Juggernaut, he still lives, but we're mainly using him so we can power up our non-artifact things and just make them Juggernauts. So kind of cool. Liberator is a Battlethopter, a flash flying 5/3 for 3 mana. You can cast your colorless spells as a dead flash, and then when we cast a spell, if the mana cost was greater than its power, we put a 1/1 counter on it. So he's cool because we can play him early game, right, when he's still a 1/2, and then we can load him up with 1/1 counters, and then we'll play Graaz, and then he'll be like a flying, like, I don't know, like 9/8 that lets our things have flash. So pretty cool. Mer Battlesphere, kind of weird with Graaz because he's a 4/7 now, but then he'll become a 5/3. But when he enters the battlefield, he brings 4 5/3s with him. So that's really cool. We have Meteor Golem. He's a 7 mana 5/3. Enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent an opponent controls. It just straight up pops something. We're in colorless, so our removal options aren't the best. And he's one of them. Mirror Retriever, 2 mana 5/3. When he dies, return another artifact card from our graveyard to our hand. Again, like Junk Diver, he just kind of gets back something we need. Palladium Mirror, 3 mana 5/3 that taps for 2. Patchwork Automaton is a 2 mana 5/3 with Ward 2, and then whenever we cast an artifact spell, put a 1/1 counter on him. So this is the Juggernaut that gets a lot bigger and bigger, so he'll be a 6/4, and he just goes crazy big. Plague Mirror is a 2 mana 5/3 with Infect that can also tap. I like this idea of having like a big Infect guy because we can just 2-shot someone with him. Scrap Trawler, 3 mana 5/3. Whenever it or another artifact creature or artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, we just return it, target artifact card in our grave with lesser mana value to our hand. So again, he's kind of like Junk Diver and like Mirror Retriever, but kind of works a little bit differently. Shimmer Mirror is a flash 5/3. Now, I'm saying all of these guys are 5/3s because that's as Graaz intended them to be. And these guys with flash are super relevant because when you're paying like 3 mana for a 5/3 blocker, like your opponents don't know what to do with that. And he lets us cast our artifacts as though they had flash, so he's really cool. Solemn, 4 mana 5/3. When he enters, we get a waste. And when he dies, we just draw a card. So he's pretty cool. He's a good blocker. He's a good beater. It's kind of like you don't really want to block him when he attacks because like we'll just draw a card. But yeah, he gets a waste for us. Steel Hellkite, again, Graaz makes it worse. So he is a flying 5/3 with fire breathing. But the reason we're running him is because we can pay X when we deal combat damage to a player, and then destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X, whose controller was dealt combat damage this turn. So the cool thing about this is we can kind of focus on whatever our opponent's doing, right? So if our opponent is like, if like we just want to kill a creature, right? We attack with Steel Hellkite, he deals damage. We just pay that creature's mana cost and it's dead. Or the cool thing we can do with him is we can swing with him at someone who's playing tokens or anything like that, pay X is 0, and then destroy all non-land permanents they control with mana value 0, which is all their tokens. So he just destroys all tokens. Steel Overseer is a 2 mana 5/3 that puts a 1/1 counter on each artifact creature we control. That's all our guys, so it makes our Juggernauts bigger and bigger. Stonecoil Serpent, another one of those things where it's a 0 mana 5/3 with reach, trample, and protection from multicolored. The trample is cool. The thing I like about Stonecoil Serpent is since Graaz only affects the base power and toughness, they still get the benefits from like the counters. So like if we just play him for like 5, right, then we just get like a 10/8 with Reach, Trample, and Pro Multicolored. He's just a really cool card. Thran Spider is a 3-mana 5/3 with Reach, and he also is going to give us and just one target opponent a tapped Power Stone token. We're just going to give that to the opponent that has the least, like, usability of it. Or we could just dump a ton of mana into him, look at the top 4 cards of our deck, look at an artifact card, and put it in our hand. Then we have Voltaic Construct. He is a 4-mana 5/3 with pay 2 mana, untap target artifact creature. I like the idea of him just because since our Juggernauts have to attack each combat if able, he can untap them to block, which I like. He can do it to himself. We can also do some very silly things with Karn if we make a non-artifact creature an artifact creature. Like, let's say we use like Thran Dynamo, it's infinite mana right there. Walking Atlas, 2-mana 5/3. Early game, he's really cool because we just tap him, put a land card from our hand onto the battlefield. So he's just like extra ramp. And the nice thing about Graaz is just late game, he's a 2-mana 5/3. Like, that's always how it goes. Wormcoil Engine is a downgrade and an upgrade simultaneously because he is a 6-mana 5/3 with Death Touch Lifelink. But when he dies, he makes a 5/3 Death Toucher and a 5/3 Lifelinker. So we kind of do get that lost value back. Let's go to Sorceries. All this dust. We don't run any Eldrazi, so it doesn't matter. Each player sacrifices all colored permanents he or she controls. We don't have any colored permanents, so our board, it's basically just like a board wipe solely for our opponents. Gruesome Slaughter, I like the idea of. So until end of turn, colorless creatures, so all our creatures, gain tap it. This creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature. So I like the idea of, like, if we know our opponents aren't going to like block with certain things, we can play this and like use our guys to like kill their stuff, like their utility creatures that they're not going to block our 5/3s with anyways. Plus, weirdly enough, I do like this. If let's say we can't really get any good blocks in, we can still play Gruesome Slaughter and tap our own guys so they won't have to attack, because they have to attack each combat. So since they're tapped, they won't be able to attack, and we can still get good value out of it. Introduction to Annihilation, we just exile target non-land and its controller draws a card. We're in colorless, removal's not ideal, but still, it's not a bad card. And then finally, we have Introduction to Prophecy, another lesson. Just straight up scry 2 and then draw a card. It's just card advantage, and that's really it. Instants, these are our only 3 instants. Scour from Existence, 7 mana, just get rid of a permanent, get it out of here. Spatial Contortion is like a weird card, because its target creature gets +3/-3 until end of turn, so it's like a baby dismember, but again, it just kills the next 3, which is nice. Warping Whale is a card I really like for this deck. So it's a modal spell, so basically choose one of them for 2 mana. Exile target creature with power or toughness 1 or less, so we can just get rid of like a utility creature, which is cool. Counter target sorcery spell, which literally no one ever sees coming. Like, no one ever sees that coming. And then finally, we can pay 2 mana to basically have a flash 5/3 that can sacrifice this creature for mana. So it's nice early game, because we can just make a 1/1 that will sacrifice itself for mana, so it's kind of like a little bit of ramp in a way. Or it's a flashy 5/3, which I think is cool, a fun blocker. Let's go to our artifacts. Basalt Monolith, taps for 3, and we can pay 3 to untap it. Doesn't untap. Again, Basalt Monolith is just kind of like a free card in a way, because you could just play Basalt Monolith for 3, tap it, and then play Cloud Key right away. So we just kind of get those artifacts into play, and then if we have mana later on another turn, we can just untap it later. Cloud Key, when it enters the battlefield, we're going to say artifact, and artifacts cost 1 less. Commander Plate is a 1-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from every color that's not in your commander's color identity. Since we're colorless, we have pro all colors because we have, again, no colors are in our commander identity, so we're pro all colors. We can equip Graaz to make them a 10. What's it called? A 10/8, which is cool. That's basically, again, remember, unblockable. Or we can just put it on one of our smaller creatures for 5 mana. Either way, it really puts pressure on. Darksteel Forge makes all our guys indestructible. Mostly, actually just makes pretty much everything we're going to play indestructible, because all of our creatures are artifact creatures. We have no enchantments because there's no colorless enchantments. And that's it. Dreamstone Hedron, taps for 3. We can pay 3, draw 3 cards. Sounds good to me. Expedition Map, you'll see in our lands later, but Expedition Map is just good ramp. It makes sure that we're hitting our land drops. And because we only have 5 non-basic lands, all of our lands are kind of like utility based. So it can help us get what we need, like would be best in this situation. Forsaken Monument, colorless all-star. 5 mana gives our creatures +2/+2, so we're having 7/5 Juggernauts. Whenever we tap a permanent for colorless, we add an additional, so basically our lands tap for 2, and our rocks tap for 1 extra. And then whenever we cast a colorless spell, gain 2 life. Just kind of the cherry on top. Hedron Archive, 4 mana, tap it for 2, pay 2, tap it, draw 2 cards. It's basically baby, where was it? Dreamstone Hedron. Oh, and then Karn Silex, 3 mana, enters tap, no big deal. Players can't pay life to cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So it kind of shuts off like Phyrexian stuff, and it shuts off like, you know, just like a random, like, whatever, people paying their life for abilities. So kind of nice. And then we have the main effect, pay X, tap it, exile it, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less. This is basically just like a board wipe. That's really like, we're just looking at as a board wipe if we really need it. Lightning Greaves. So we don't really need Graaz to win, but he really does speed up the clock a lot. And also just giving him haste because he's a 7/5 is good. And that we just don't want him to be targeted. Mech Titan Core is a card I really like. So it's a 2/4 vehicle, not really relevant. But what we're looking for is we do this when we don't have Graaz. So Mech Titan Core, pay 5, exile Mech Titan Core and 4 other artifact creatures or vehicles, and we're going to make a legendary 10/10 with flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and haste. That's all colors. So we just make a big boy, and like even if it leaves, like that token leaves the battlefield, we just get all our stuff back anyway, so kind of like no harm, no foul, and we get a big hasty like trample, vigilance, 10/10 lifelinker. So it's cool. Mindstone, it's just an artifact, pay 2, get a colorless, we can also sack a draw card. Mirage Mirror I like because it is a 3 mana artifact, we can pay 2, and we really just get a copy of the best thing on anyone's board. So it's like, oh, you have a Praetor, I'll take a Praetor. Oh, you have like a Blightsteel, I'll take a Blightsteel. We just get good stuff with it. Mirrorworks, we're kind of a big mana deck anyway because we have a lot of ramp. And we're generally low costed, so Mirrorworks 5 mana. Whenever a non-token artifact enters the battlefield under our control, we can pay 2, and if we do, we just make a token that's a copy of that artifact. So it just kind of helps us double up on stuff just by paying 2. Mystic Forge, look at the top card of our deck anytime, sounds good. We can cast artifacts and colorless spells from the top of our library, quite literally all of our deck. And then we can pay 1 life and tap it to exile the top card of our library. So, which is kind of nice because, like, let's say like we have like a land on the top and we don't really need a land, we can just get rid of it, and then we can like kind of cycle through, and it's kind of just essentially gives us an extra card in our hand at all times. That's why I like those kinds of cards like Mystic Forge, Bowls, Citadel, and stuff. Planar Atlas is a card I've actually never seen before making this deck. Enters the battlefield tap, no big deal. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of our library, and we can basically reveal a land and put it into our hand, and the rest on the bottom. And then it taps for a colorless. So again, it just kind of makes sure we hit our land drop for next turn, and then it taps for a colorless anyways. So it sounds pretty cool. And plus, generally, like, you're not going to do much on turn 2 anyways. Portal to Phyrexia is kind of our top end. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. Absolutely brutal. At the beginning of our upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under our control, and it's a Phyrexian. So the cool thing about this card is, again, it just like destroys, assuming like in a pot of 3 or a pot of 4, including us, it's going to come in and destroy, or each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures, so that's 9 creatures gone. Like, you know, you're basically paying a mana to kill a creature. And then we start reanimating things from graveyards. Not our graveyards, just graveyards. So we get, again, the best thing in anyone's graveyard. And then we have Sculpting Steel. It just comes in as a copy of the best artifact on the battlefield. Wink, wink, probably Portal to Phyrexia. So Sculpting Steel just gets us the best thing. Worst case scenario, we just get another 5/3 Juggernaut. Sunblend's Anvil, 3 mana. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to exile an artifact. And then it's just going to say, artifacts cost 2 less. Pretty much it. Soul Ring is Soul Ring. Not going to do much there. The Mightstone and Weakstone is a very cool thing. One, because it's just straight up a Power Stone, so it's going to tap for artifacts anyways, so we still get 2 mana for it. And then we either going to draw 2 cards or straight up kill a creature. So it's kind of like a really cool rock that just kills a creature or draws us 2 cards. So I like it. Thought Vessel, just to give us no max hand size. We're not going to be drawing a ton of cards, but again, it's just a good little rock. 3 Dynamo, 4 mana, taps for 3. Really only costs 1 mana when you think about it. So sounds good. And then we have Thran Temporal Gateway. I like the idea of this because we can pay 4 mana to tap it, put a historic permanent from our hand onto the battlefield. Again, all that matters is historics are artifacts and legendaries, mostly just artifacts, so we can pay 4 mana to cheese an artifact into play. And then the final artifact we have is Unwinding Clock. I really like this card as an idea. One, because it's gonna untap like all of our like rocks and creatures. But since Juggernauts have to attack each turn if able, Unwinding Clock essentially gives them pseudo vigilance, which sounds good to me. Let's go to our lands. Ancient Tomb taps for 2 colorless, deals 2 damage to us. We kind of need that little bit of extra ramp of getting that extra 2 mana because we're kind of we have like some low cost, but we also have some high costs, and it's really good to get Graaz into play. Arch of Araska, we can pay 5 mana and tap it to draw a card. We can do that after we ascended, but we typically will in games of Commander. Blast Zone taps for a colorless. We can put charge counters on it, or we can just straight up get rid of it to destroy each non-land permanent with mana value equal to the number of charge counters on it, so we can destroy all 1-drops. It's kind of nice because we can scale it up to whatever we need on someone's end step, and then on our turn we can just get rid of it and destroy each creature or non-land permanent with that CMC. So it sounds good to me. Blasted Landscape, it just cycles. That's really it. When we're kind of looking at colorless lands, we're kind of looking for more or less utility than and value than really practicality, because our other option is just the basic waste over it. So again, just cycling. If we really don't want it, we can just draw a card. Bonder's Enclave, we can pay 3 mana, tap it, and draw a card. And since all our Juggernauts are 5/3s, it will usually work out. Buried Ruins, we can just get rid of it to get an artifact from our grave back to our hand. It's just a one-off Junk Diver effect. Command Beacon, taps for a colorless. Since Graaz already costs 7 mana, and he's so big and chunky, if he dies once or twice, he's going to be kind of hard to cast again, so we can just get rid of Command Beacon and pay him for 7 again. Crawling Barrens, I really like this idea, right? So Crawling Barrens, we can tap it for a colorless, or, hear me out, we can pay 4 mana, right, to animate it to be a 0/0. We'll put 2 uncounters on it to be a 0/0, so it's a 2/2, but it's important that Graaz doesn't say artifact creatures, it just says creatures. So this is actually, we could pay 4 mana to turn this land into, at worst, a 7/5. Just whatever we want. That gets bigger and bigger every time we use it. So I do like that idea. Emergent Zone, we just pay mana, get rid of it, and we can cast spells as if they had flash this turn. This is kind of like an emergency, we need a blocker, we need to cast a removal spell or play whatever, right? It's just good to have. Field of the Dead, weird choice for this deck, but honestly, I kind of figured since we're running so many non-basics anyways, we might as well toss Field of the Dead in just so we can start flooding out getting 2/2 black zombies just for good blockers. And those 2/2 black zombies, again, are really just 5/3 Juggernauts. Gyreach Sanitarium, legendary land, pay 2 mana, each player draws a card and then discards a card. It kind of sucks that it helps our opponents, but we're in colorless. We don't really have the best of options. Ghost Quarter just pops a land, sounds good to me. Hall of Tagsin, I kind of like the idea of just being oh, we don't really have anything else to do, so we can just make it Power Stone on someone else's end step. I do like the idea, since we have all this mana and rocks and stuff, that we will be able to just use our artifact lands and put stuff into it. Making a Power Stone really seems good to me on someone's end step before our turn starts. Inventor's Fair, if we have 3 more artifacts, gain a life. Cool, we're artifact deck. Taps for a colorless, or we can pay 4 mana and sack it if we have 3 or more artifacts and search our deck for an artifact and put it in our hand. Next, we have Mage Ring Network. I kind of like the idea of the storage land in colorless. So it taps for a colorless, we can pay a mana and tap it to put a counter on it, and then we can tap it and remove any number of counters to get a big mana land tap. So it's kind of we're not doing anything for the first few turns, or we have this in another land untapped or whatever, we just put a counter on it. And then it ends up tapping for 5 every once in a while. Mikoro, Center of the Sea. Again, just each player draws a card. it's just kind of good for us. It does help our opponents, but I mean, what can you do? It's colorless. Mirror Pool enters the battlefield tapped. Taps for colorless. We can pay 2 mana or 3 mana, sack it, copy an instant or sorcery we control. We're not doing that. Don't worry about it. And then we can pay 5 mana to tap and sacrifice it. Put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of target creature we control. So again, it's just like another instant speed. We get the best. We get like a copy of the best artifact creature we control, or creature we control. So that's really it, right? Is we just get like a copy of our best thing. So we have 2 of them. Myriad Landscape enters tapped. Taps for a colorless. We pay 2 mana, search our deck for 2 wastes, put them on the battlefield. Sounds good. Just easy ramp and colorless. Rogue's Passage to make our big boys, like what our biggest boy really, not be able to be blocked, which is kind of good because Graaz is a 7/5, so that means he's someone's on a 3-turn clock with commander damage, and we can just sneak him in unblockable. Sounds good to me. Sanctum of Ugin is kind of cool. It taps for a colorless, but whenever we cast a colorless spell with mana cost 7 or greater, which is our commander, we can sacrifice it and search our deck for a colorless creature card and put it in our hand. So I like the idea of just like, yeah, we can like use it to cast our commander, and then if we don't want it, we can just get just a creature card from our deck into our hand. So it's just like a creature tutor in colorless. Scavenger Grounds, we just straight up don't have many ways to deal with graveyards in colorless. Like there's like Grafdigger's Cage, but I wanted to go more on the beatdown plan. But yeah, just sacrifice it, exile all cards from all graves. Easy. Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, it taps for a colorless, but sometimes it can tap for 2 if we have 7 or more lands. Sounds good to me. Tomb of the Spirit Dragon, I forgot this card existed until I saw it, but it taps for a colorless, and then we can pay 2 and gain a life for each colorless creature we control, so we just get a little bit of life, which is kind of good, because if we're tapping down to attack every turn, that's kind of going to matter in the end. Urza's Factory, important. It's a land Urza's, which we're going to focus on. Land Urza's is important. Taps for a color, so we can pay 7 mana and just make a 2/2, who cares, right? It's a guy if we need it. That's actually, I don't know, I take it back because it's actually a 5/3 if we need it. Urza's Mine, Power Plant, Tower. You guys know them. They're the Tron lands. They each tap for a colorless. If you got the Trifecta, they tap for 2, 2, and 3. So easy ramp. But then finally, Urza's Workshop, right? Land Urza's is important. Taps for a colorless, but if we have Metalcraft, add a colorless for each Urza's land we control and activate it if you know Metalcraft. So we have 5 Urza's lands, right? So I like it because like in the event we can't really get Tron, or like we have like 1 or 2 of them, or we have Urza's Factory, this still does tap for like definitely more than 1. Like at best it taps for 5. I feel like at worst it taps for 2, and likely it's probably tapping for 3 or 4. War Room, 3 mana, pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's identity. Spoiler alert, we don't lose any life. 3 mana, draw a card. And then finally, we just have wastes. I didn't add it, but it's 5 wastes. I'm just realizing this now. We have 5 wastes for a total of 34 lands. So, about the deck, $340. Can be cheaper if you want to take away the big money cards like Ancient Tomb, Portal to Phyrexia, and like some of the bigger like artifact creatures and stuff are expensive. But those are like the big bulk. Like Ancient Tomb's like $60 or so. So that's already like a big chunk of the deck. And the average CMC is 3.83, which is high, but we have so much ramp, it hardly even matters. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and tell me what you guys want me to make next, and I'll just do it. I will see you guys next time, and thanks for watching.